need them and want them, and how can we protect ourselves?
How can we protect ourselves?
Well, one thing is passwords. So making sure when we buy a device, we don't just leave it with the default password. You know, if it's connecting to the internet and it has a password, change it to something, and change it to something strong and more secure than the default one that it comes with.
And in terms of the money that the government's putting in this new strategy announced today, how can any amount of money keep up with the ever-changing technology? And we know we've got teenagers in bedrooms on the other side of the world who are one step ahead of any expert and any government.
And not just that, but organised criminal gangs increasingly are carrying out cybercrime. So it is a massive problem, and there will never be any such thing as 100% security online, just as there isn't in the physical world. And it's not just about money. You know, money's fantastic, but it's about how we spend it, and it's also about getting more people skilled in cybersecurity, from a basic point of view of the average user, but also people working in the industry. You know, we have a big skills gap at the moment. We have a lot of vacancies that aren't being filled, and we also have a lot of talented people out there that could be in the industry. So one thing I think the government really need to focus on is making pathways into the industry clearer, so we can get more talented people working on the good side.
All right, Dr. Jessica Barker, thank you very much. Thank you. Well, for advice on how you can protect yourself online, go to our website, itv.com/news. OK, a final thought now from our Deputy Political Editor, Chris Shipp, who is now in Westminster. How much of a priority is cybersecurity for this government?
Well, you know, Nina, the answer to that is as much a priority as terrorism is or international military conflict is. And I suspect that might be come as a bit of a surprise to many people. But then you think about the sort of areas of the country which are at risk from cybercrime. We're talking here then about our critical infrastructure, like our power grids, like air traffic control, as well as all sorts of online financial fraud. And I think the other thing that struck me here today was this almost coordinated attack on Russia. You had the head of MI5 talking about Russia being more aggressive. Philip Hammond in that speech didn't mention Russia by name, but used a couple of examples. Ukraine was one of them and said answers on a postcard, please, to number 11 Downing Street. And also the Defence Secretary in the Commons there has also been talking about Russia this morning. And the message from government is when it comes to cyber conflict, unlike conventional military conflict, they are prepared to retaliate.
All right, Chris Shipp, thank you. Campaigners have today said they will not give up their fight for a review into the so-called Battle of Orgreave after the Home Secretary said it wouldn't happen. This lunchtime, the Labour MP Andy Burnham said Amber Rudd's decision was staggering.
Orgreave is one of the most divisive events in British social history. Given that there is evidence of unlawful conduct by police in relation to it, isn't it simply staggering that the Home Secretary has brushed away an inquiry as not necessary? And isn't it even more revealing that she wasn't prepared to come to this House today to justify her decision?
Some anger in the Commons, and there's anger this lunchtime from campaigners in South Yorkshire too. Damon Green joins me now from Barnsley. What happens now in the campaigners' fight?
Well, what they say is that their battle continues. The original Battle of Orgreave, of course, is long over. It finished 32 years ago. Those clashes between police and pickets outside the Orgreave coking plant in South Yorkshire, that led to 95 arrests of minors later charged with riot and violent disorder offences, which could have led them to spending the rest of their lives in prison. Trials which collapsed because of unreliable police evidence. And the fact that there will now be no inquiry into how that happened is very hard for the campaigners to accept. What's even harder for them to accept is Amber Rudd's apparent argument that there doesn't need to be an inquiry because nobody died. They say that argument simply does not stack up.
It will take a Home Secretary to recognise that you can't just say, because this was a long time ago, because nobody died, because nobody was sent to prison for a long period, that's all right then. It isn't. I mean, as I said from the stage, I think the Home Secretary has a funny sense of what a miscarriage of justice is if she thinks it's necessary for people to be sent to prison first.
Was a lot of talk of a legal challenge to Amber Rudd's decision. That might take the form of a judicial review, but even some of the sharpest legal brains here say that might not be particularly successful. All that would mean was that a judge would tell Amber Rudd she had to make the decision again. She could easily come to the same conclusion. Well, what campaigners here are saying is what could be the most fruitful avenue for them to pursue is simply to keep political pressure on the government to try to persuade them to change their minds.
Damon Green, many thanks. Iraqi soldiers fighting to reclaim the city of Mosul from the so-called Islamic State have made further gains this morning. Troops have been advancing from the east and have reached an area just half a mile from the centre. In the last hour, there are reports the army has now taken control of the city's television station. Neil Connery has the latest.
Iraqi forces enter the outskirts of Mosul for the first time as they attempt to drive so-called Islamic State militants from the city. They moved in at first light, almost 2.5 years since Mosul fell to IS. Reports this morning say they're meeting stiff resistance, but the Major General overseeing the Iraqi Special Forces says they remain determined to push on through. We are now less than half a mile from the eastern entrance of Mosul. God willing, we will liberate and control Mosul in the coming hours. In the last hour, as Iraqi special forces move forward, they say they've taken the state TV building in the east of the city. It's believed around 4,000 militants remain in Mosul, along with up to 1.5 million civilians. More than 18,000 residents have fled so far. The UN fears as many as 700,000 others could follow in the worst-case scenario. Speaking at an airbase south of the city, Iraq's Prime Minister has told IS militants dug in inside Mosul to surrender or die. On the ground, the push into Mosul city is finally underway. Neil Connery, ITV News.
Here, the football associations of England, Scotland and Wales are in talks with the world governing body FIFA over whether players can wear poppies on their shirts to mark Armistice Day. England plays Scotland at Wembley on November the 11th. A day later, Wales face Serbia in Cardiff. FIFA bans political, religious or commercial messages on shirts. Our sports correspondent Ian Payne is here. Conflicting views on what the poppy symbolises.
Yes, this is the problem. The basic problem, Nina, is that FIFA, football's world governing body, as you say, they see the poppy as a political emblem, and that's something that they forbid. They feel that if you're commemorating wars, that could open up the doors to all sorts of international teams wearing all sorts of sporting motifs. Now, British Veterans Association and the British Legion are very upset about this because they don't see the poppy as commemorating war. They see it as remembrance rather than conflict, which is why last weekend, for example, there were quite a few teams, this is Everton in action, who were wearing the poppy on their shirts. But the difference is the rules are much, much stricter when it comes to international competition between countries, not just clubs.
Is a solution, given that footage, given we've seen armbands before, is a solution likely in this situation?
Yes, because internationally we have, as they say, previous. When England played Spain in an international back in 2011, there was the same arguments. FIFA said, no, it's political, we don't want you to wear them. All the Veterans Associations said it's remembrance, etc., etc. But for FIFA were adamant at that time. So what they came up with as a solution was for the England players to wear black armbands, and then on the armbands they would have the emblem of the poppy, and that was seen as more significant and rather than being a political thing. The FA going all out of their way for remembrance. They're going to have poppy sellers in the crowd. They're going to a war memorial with the players, and they're even going to have the last post being rendered at the match as well.
Ian, thank you. And a little later on in the programme, the story of one man's determination to sell poppies even at the age of 99. Before that, the annual celebration of some of the bravest, most generous or hard-working men, women and children in the country, the Pride of Britain Awards. There was royalty, pop singers and TV presenters aplenty, but as always, the real stars of the show were the winners, as Nick Wallace now reports.
Glittering celebrities adorned the red carpet outside the Grosvenor House Hotel last night, but for once it wasn't about them. They were there to celebrate the achievements of extraordinary people, old and young.
The vibe is crazy. There are so many people, celebrities, inspirational people, and it's amazing.
These people that get the awards deserve it, and I'm very proud to be a part of it.
Inside, young artist Raya Kara was recognised for raising more than £30,000 for charity, and Nikki Christie, the cookery and makeup blogger, was given the Child of Courage Award. The Prince of Wales honoured the Young Achiever of the Year for her work helping young girls discover their potential.
Well done, Francesca, if I may say so, and many, many congratulations on this outstanding achievement.
Professor Stephen Hawking was given the Lifetime Achievement Award by the Prime Minister and couldn't resist a dig.
I deal with tough mathematical questions every day, but please don't ask me to help with Brexit.
But it was the children who stole the show. Young people who've overcome sometimes heartbreaking difficulties to be an inspiration to everyone in the room, including little Tilly, walking for just the 4th time since suffering terrible burns as a baby.
Do you know this man here?
Yeah.
Is the right response.
What do you think of him, Tilly?
Funny.
It's funny. That's good.
I like Tilly. It might have been a late night, but the Pride of Britain Awards remains a wonderful tribute to the very best of all of us. Nick Wallace, ITV News.
And I'm delighted to say Carol Vorderman joins me now. Once again, you found some incredible winners.
Oh, it makes me get teary watching that,
I'm not surprised. Yeah. What I didn't realise is the original awards, the first ones...
In 1999, very different, and that was put together by Daily Mirror, and it also had Sportsman of the Year, Businessman of the Year, Musician, it was everybody. And I hosted that, but in the middle of it was this essence of what is the Pride of Britain now. There were 7 or 8 awards, and the room fell silent, and I could see Paul McCartney crying, Mick Hucknall crying, everybody was crying, and it was just extraordinary. So at the time, I was working a lot on ITV, so I went to the ITV bosses, got them to come over to Canary Wharf to see the Daily Mirror, and that's where the Pride of Britain Awards started. Yeah.
And once again, some incredible stories. But we met the formidable yesterday, Nikki Christie, the YouTube blogger, superstar. But she apparently inspired one of your other winners last night.
Yes, because we spend quite a lot of time together, because for me, it's about all our wonderful winners have the best time, and they are often shy to go on the stage, so they've got to feel comfortable. So I introduce them and tell their stories to each other, and you know, we sort of go through a mini show the night before, really, which I host, and we're in a restaurant, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, what is lovely is that they mix on the tables and they come together on the night as a team, and so, of course, the children all chat. And Raya, who has won the Good Morning Britain Fundraising Award, Young Fundraiser Award, she was going to be very shy on stage, and she said that Nikki has inspired her to have the confidence to come up and do the amazing things.
Nikki's the most confident 12-year-old you will ever meet.
She's a very special young lady.
Yeah, absolutely. Really you had many a special moment last night, I'm sure, but one of them was when you actually had a real, proper, personal connection with one of the winners. Let's just show the viewers a clip of that.
I was a matter of hours from death, was I not, with sepsis. And David was there in A&E and whisked me off and gave me drugs for a long time to calm everything down, and then did a very, very long operation on me. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm so sorry. David won the award for all of this incredible surgery that he's performed in war-torn countries over many, many years. He's an incredible man. But he is an NHS surgeon. And on behalf of all the NHS patients, I wanted to say thank you to him, because 12 years ago, nobody really knows this, I was rushed into hospital, and as an emergency, I had sepsis. And I had hours to live, and he saved my life. So on behalf of all the NHS patients, I wanted to...
And really good to get awareness of sepsis out any time we can. Look, just before I let you go, and I know you wear waterproof mascara for the whole event. It's on tonight. But the winners have just gone to Downing Street. We must show the viewers a picture of that.
They went to Downing Street this morning, and everybody has to bring along their best bib and tucker for all sorts of events that we take them. We like to spoil them for 3 or 4 days.
A very brilliant, busy day for them. Carol, thank you so much. We've given you a teaser, but you can watch all the amazing winners on tonight on ITV, the Pride in Britain Awards at 8. Finally, every November, 99-year-old Ron Jones has a really busy couple of weeks. He heads every day to Newport city centre to sell poppies, until last year when he retired. But it didn't last long. The soldier and prisoner of war is back at it once again. Sally Biddulph has Ron's remarkable story.
For 3 decades, Ron Jones has sold poppies. For him, it's a deeply personal affair. A veteran of World War II who survived Auschwitz as a prisoner of war working in a factory alongside the concentration camp.
Well, I know what it's like to come home. When I came home from Auschwitz, I was on that death march. I was only just over 7 stone from a 13-stone man. I remember Gladys, my wife, put me in the bath the first night I was home. I was like a boy from Belsen, and she started crying. I said, "Oh, don't cry, love." I said, "I'm here in one piece. I left men out there that's never going to come home."
Ron has never forgotten the more than 100 Allied comrades who died on that death march. He joined the Royal British Legion as a life member in 1980 in their memory, turning his attention then to those fighting in more modern-day conflicts.
Helping the chaps coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, basically.
Ron did actually retire from poppy selling last year, but returned this year unable to keep away. Those that know him say this won't be the end of it.
I think time will tell. I think if he's still breathing next year, he'll probably sell in poppies.
Many are now suggesting that Ron should be recognised in the honours list.
99 and I'm still here.
Before he gets the official birthday telegram from the Queen in April. Sally Biddulph, ITV News.
That's it. Mark Austin and Charlene White will be here with the ITV Evening News from me. Bye-bye.